trying to fight fires in this old-fashioned way. So I've got a leading Silicon Valley investor and entrepreneur to bring together a team to create what we're calling Fire Force, using the best technology, AI, drones, autonomous firefighting vehicles, to detect fires as soon as that spark happens and extinguish them if they are potentially dangerous.
What do you think about that? Anybody?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if your government's not doing stuff adequately, especially when you fund it with your tax dollars, why not?
They're hiring private firefighters out there. Did you see this, Ray?
I did. I mean, isn't this a complete condemnation of Governor Gavin Newsom and the Democrat Party, the far left, the extreme far left, who I'm not saying they started the fires. I'm saying they created by their neglect and misappropriation of resources, they created a situation where the fires can not only start but quickly spread. It is, and by the way, do we know? And some of you guys may know the answer to this. Were any of these fires started by arson, or were they natural causes like a lightning strike or what?
Okay.
What do we know?
All right, so I don't know. I don't know what we know yet or don't know yet, quite frankly. Right. Yesterday, and Steve Jordahl is going to talk about this when he comes in. Yesterday, he showed me a video of satellite imagery that said that the three first fires all started at the same time. Now, did y'all see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Sky
widely separated. So
yeah, widely separated. That's right. So when you see that, you go, well, this is intentional, right?
Right.
So who started the fires? That's what you. I mean, that's a rational conclusion to come to, right?
Yeah,
right. If in fact the satellite imagery has not been manipulated. Nowadays, right, we have to check everything out 6 times before we're absolutely convinced of it, because there's so much AI manipulation people can do with the video and the internet.
To answer Ray's question, and again, Steve can talk about this more, but there was one guy arrested for being a suspect with a flamethrower near L.A., and he was an illegal immigrant. Now, he was just a suspect. But we don't have any definitive, at this point, information that has a guy with a name and, it's a slam dunk case. But a combination of, and if it's what you saw, what we talked about, what you're talking about is true, then that means there's more than one potential arsonist.
Yeah.
That would be the three.
Started at the same time. So,
I just know that as of today, there's still no water in the fire hydrants. Mississippi
really?
Fire, yeah, in
you
LA,
serious?
California. Oh yeah. So,
well, there's going to be a lot of questions to answer in the coming weeks and months.
where the water is?
Yeah. Well, what happened?
Yeah, sure.
What happened now? A lot of people are saying, I mean, right now we're in the midst of the people in California in the midst of fighting even potentially new fires, but having. Anyway, there's going to be a lot of blame to go around, and almost every single politician in California are Democrats. So
many of them.
And something else you're not going to see in necessarily mainstream news, and I'll try to find an article. I'll have to dig pretty deep, but I read this the other day. If y'all remember, when the moment that the fire was getting to the point where it was out of control and they were about to take off, they were wanting to use their airplanes to
drop water or either
or there's
what they call chemical retardants.
All that.
Fires, yeah.
They're in the process because they're equipped in that manner.
Yeah.
The fire hydrants doesn't stop that.
Yeah, they have fires in California all the time.
So they were prepared. They're in line to go.
Right.
And the winds, the winds were too high.
Right.
For them to fly. Okay. Do you remember? And did you see where at the moment that they were clear, which was the next morning, mid-morning, they were clear. Hey, the winds are good enough. You can take off. At that moment, that's when President Biden and his plane was coming in town, and they had to delay it another 6 hours because they had to clear the airways. They had to clear everything out so that Biden could land and come into town. Did you see that?
No, I did not.
Yeah. So we delayed. Now it looks bad.
Yeah.
the situation looks bad. The fact that we're delaying these planes getting up to go take off to fight fires so the president can land.
Yeah, that's not a good
the timing.
I didn't know Biden went out to Los Angeles. So he went out to Los Angeles?
Yeah, he went out there for a briefing. And then
for what?
For a briefing.
He went out there for a briefing, and his first thing was, well, that's terrible, but the good news is I'm a great-grandfather. And everybody's like, yay.
Oh, well.
All that, and he delayed the fires. Somebody on his staff should have said, hey, look, President, we need to let these airplanes get off the ground, and we may be 12 hours late, but we need to come back, or we need to circle it. We need to time this better.
So you're saying the firefighters that were going to use aircraft to fight the fires had to wait?
Had to postpone because at the moment there was some weird timing because they're having to look at the wind and justify taking their fire planes off the ground. So the moment that was happening is when the president was coming into town. So then they had to delay it.
Yeah, when you've got 70, 80, 90 mile an hour winds, you're not going to be able to fly helicopters around, Ray.
Right.
Or small aircraft would be probably told not to fly. So
well, apparently the winds are picking up today, tonight, and into tomorrow, which is a terrifying thought for fires that are not yet completely controlled. When you look at these, Tim, when you look at these videos of places like Pacific Palisades, the word apocalyptic comes to mind.
Yeah.
It looks like a scene out of the Book of Revelation.
Yeah.
You look for blocks and blocks, and there was a community there, and it's gone. Families there, and they're gone. Homes there, and it's gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I talked yesterday. Of course, it's speculation on my part, but I'm just thinking ahead on whether they'll even be able to rebuild in those areas. Because of you're looking at a year or two, even if things stopped right now, of having to clear out the whole area of debris. And you've got metal, you've got stone, you've got cars that didn't burn altogether, you've got rubble. I mean, just to get one lot cleaned off would, that's a lot of time and energy and effort. And then you got to take dump trucks one after another. I mean, think about that, for a long, long time. And then you got the idea of, or the prospect of insurance companies saying, we're out. A lot of them have already said they were out. But we're in other words, okay, you can rebuild, but no insurance company is going to insure your home. Well, no mortgage company is going to let you borrow money from them. If you have to borrow money to build your house, you don't have cash, they're not going to let you borrow unless you have insurance, right? So anyway, there's just so many questions that I have, whether they'll ever be able to rebuild in some of those areas again, as valuable that property has been over time. And they're in the Los Angeles area. You're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Ray, Tim, Chris, and Wesley. Let's go ahead and take our time out right here. Frank Turek will be with us momentarily. He's got a new. Well, I will just tell you about it when we get back from the break. We got something very interesting to talk to Brother Frank about. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildmon.
Jim had two things going against him. First, he was a habitual complainer. Now, I know you've met people like that. They're constantly complaining about something. If the sun is shining, they complain because there isn't any rain. If it's raining, they complain because the sun isn't shining. They would be absolutely miserable if they didn't have something to complain about. But since they do, they only make those around them miserable. Why people have that attitude is beyond me. Sure, there's plenty wrong. You don't have to be awake very long in the morning to realize that. But there's also plenty right. And it's up to us to choose which we will concentrate on, that which is wrong or that which is right. Now, I said Jim had two things going against him. The other was that he was stingy. He wanted to keep every penny he ever had, and he was constantly complaining about having to spend any of his money. I bet you've met people like that. Stingy, I mean. Of course, now, I know none of us are stingy, but we know other people who are. You and I have a healthy attitude toward money. We spend it for the necessities and for recreation, and we even give 1/10 of our money to the church. Well, maybe not 1/10, but at least it's a lot more than other people give. But back to Jim. One day Jim was talking with his neighbor and a friend of the neighbor. The subject turned to money, and Jim grabbed the chance to start complaining about how much his son was costing him. That boy didn't have any business going to college in the first place. College costs too much money. It ain't worth it. I never went to college, and it never hurt me. Well, the neighbor asked Jim about the boy getting a scholarship or his working to help some with the expenses. Well, he has a scholarship which pays for most of his tuition, and he works about 20 hours a week, but it still costs me a lot of money, Jim said. Up to that point in the conversation, the friend of Jim's neighbor had not said hardly anything. But there was a slack in the conversation, and the friend spoke up. I know how you feel, Jim. I had a boy in college a few years back. Seemed like it took everything I could beg and borrow to keep him in school. Every time I turned around, it was $10 for this and $50 for something else. And I guess I did my share of complaining about how much it was costing me. There was a pause in his conversation, but then the friend continued. But you know something, Jim? The neighbor's friend asked. What's that? Replied Jim. My boy doesn't cost me a penny now, the friend said. Well, I'll be glad when my boy doesn't cost me any more money, said Jim. The friend waited for a moment. Then he ended the conversation. No, Jim, that boy of mine doesn't cost me a penny now. He'll never cost me another penny as long as I live. He was killed in an automobile accident 3 years ago. Think about it for a moment, my friend.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildmon, a production of the American Family Association.
Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." Matthew 19, verse 14.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. Tim, Wesley, Chris, and Ray. And most Tuesdays, when he's available, Dr. Frank Turek joins us, host of Cross-Examined, heard weekends here on American Family Radio, Saturdays at 9 a.m. and Sundays at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. The program Cross-Examined with Frank Turek. Frank, good morning to you.
Good morning. Hey, I haven't mentioned this to you, Tim, but we did update the name of the show. It's now called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, just so you can say more words when you say it's going to be on.
Okay. Well, that's like 7 more words or something like that. Okay. So I can cross out Cross-Examined.
That's our website. You can keep using it. Doesn't matter. I'm just letting you know. Yeah.
All right. Well,
just to make your life harder, Tim.
That's fine. No, that's fine. So, host of I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist is our good friend Frank Turek right here, right now on American Family Radio. So, I was looking at your website, Cross-Examined.
That's right.
And came upon this topic that you're discussing with those who frequent your website and follow your ministry, how to interpret your Bible.
Yep.
That's the topic you're covering. What is this?
It's an online course, actually. I want to ask everybody on the show right now, how many people have ever been in a church where they taught you how to interpret your Bible? Anyone?
Well, Bill over there raised his hand in Kansas. You see him?
Bill in Kansas?
Yeah, Joe in Tennessee raised his. So only 2 or 3 people raised
Only
their
2 or
hand.
3 people.
This was
You would
virtual,
think,
right?
yeah. Hey, Ray, have you ever?
Hey, yeah, we used to, and when I was in Oak Park, we had courses on a regular basis. But I'm thinking about our son who pastors up in Missoula, Montana. He takes a couple times a year, takes a whole Saturday for the whole congregation and teaches them in like 5 or 6 hours how to study the Bible for themselves. In my churches, we never did that. Now I think I should have,
Yeah, I know. It's just odd to me that if we believe the Bible is the Word of God, and we do, you would think that would be like the first thing you would teach people.
Yeah.
Right? Because how often does a pastor get to spend teaching the Bible with his congregation? Once a week, maybe, right? Theoretically, they're supposed to be reading the Bible every day, and you would think that we would provide them with the necessary tools to interpret the Bible properly, because if you interpret the Bible improperly, that can result in real problems. You might make decisions based on verses that you thought taught something, but they really didn't teach it. In fact, let me just point out that according to Bible Gateway, they put out the most searched Bible verses in 2024. Does anyone want to guess what number 1 was?
Probably stays at the top. John.
God is love.
Oh,
God is
how
love,
about
no.
how about Book of Jeremiah?
Yeah, where in Jeremiah?
29:11.
There you go.
Yeah.
For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you future and a hope. That is the number 1 Bible verse searched on Bible Gateway in 2024, and I'm going to make a lot of people mad right now, but I don't care. I'm going to hang up here in like 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That verse has zero to do with Christians living in America in 2025 now, in terms of a promise. That is not a promise to 21st century Christians, and yet people think it is. And why do they think it is? Because people don't know how to interpret the Bible.
But it's on a coffee mug somewhere.
It's on a coffee mug. It's on pillows. It's on posters. When people say I'm claiming Jeremiah 29:11 as a promise to me, I say, why don't you claim Jeremiah 44:11 as a promise to you?
Oh, I hadn't read that one.
What does that say?
Well, Jeremiah 44:11 says, I will destroy you and all Judah.
Yeah.
You don't see that on a coffee mug.
Ouch. I want that other one.
You don't see that stitched into a pillow.
It sounds to me like you're saying that context matters.
Yes.
The fancy word there that some people may be more familiar with is hermeneutics.
Yes.
That's how to study the Bible. Used to eat that.
He used to live by me.
Live by me. He okay.
Herman. Yeah, his last name was
Lassonutics.
Yeah.
Hermeneutics.
He was a nice guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. This is
Very
we're having
important
fun,
issue.
but this is very important, and that is how to interpret your Bible. That's the class that Frank offers on his website for how to interpret your Bible. But what you're saying is that, well, we need to understand how to interpret the Bible because it can be easily misinterpreted, right, Frank?
Yeah, because I think most of us think that the Bible is a series of verses that we can just pick out like it's a fortune book and say, oh, the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, plans to give you hope in the future. Oh, I love that. Let me just pull that out and say it's a promise to me. When you look at the context of the passage, it's not a promise to people living today. That was a promise to people living 2,600 years ago in exile. The Jews who were taken out of Judah in 586 BC by the Babylonian dictator Nebuchadnezzar, he took them to Babylon. And then God, through the prophet Jeremiah, was telling those people that 70 years from that point, he was going to prosper them, bring them back into the land. And it actually happened because in 516 BC, the temple was reconstructed there in there in Judah. And many of the exiles that went to Babylon returned to Judah. That was a promise to them. And by the way, Jeremiah 44:11 was the promise that was made, that God made to the exiles who tried to escape to Egypt in 586 BC. And he warned them, don't go to Egypt. That's why it says, I will destroy you and all Judah. Nobody claims that verse for themselves today because they just don't like it. But they shouldn't claim that one either because it doesn't apply to them either.
What about claiming verses at all?
What's that?
What about the idea of claiming verses at all?
Well, yeah.
Is that okay?
Well, it depends on whether or not it applies to us today in the sense that it's a promise today. And I know this is going to sound odd too, but I think it's true. And we teach this in the course, How to Interpret Your Bible. There are no verses in the Bible. I mean, when Jeremiah was writing Jeremiah, he didn't say, here's Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11.
Right.
No, those were added 500 years ago to help us navigate the text, which is important because it'd be hard to find your way around this big series of books we put under one binding we called the Bible if you didn't have numbers in there, right? You need numbers to find your way around. The problem is we tend to think if it's got a number in front of it, we can take it out and make it say whatever we want, and we can't do that. We've got to see what the context is to know how it applies to us today. Jeremiah 29:11 applies to us today in the sense that it's showing us God's character, it's showing us his history, what he did for the people of Judah, but it's not a promise to us like it was to them living 2,600 years ago in Babylon.
So I got a question. Obviously, what we're getting at is that there is a systematic way of interpreting the Bible. What would you say? And obviously, there's a class here, so there's a lot of information. But what would be the first, worldview or vision, or how would you, when you first open the Bible, what's the first thing you need to make sure you've got right?
Great question. What I do is that we have an acronym in the course, STOP, S-T-O-P. If you go through this acronym, you'll be able to figure out probably 95% of what you need to know what the verse really means and then how to apply it. S stands for the situation. What's the situation? Like we just did it with Jeremiah.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremiah 29:11, the situation is, okay, these people are taken out of Judah by Nebuchadnezzar. You know the situation, right? The T stands for what type of literature is it? Is this history? Is this law? Is this parable? Is this poetry? Is this prophecy? Because you're gonna interpret poetry different than you are, say, law, right? So you got to know what type of literature it is. The O in STOP stands for who's the object of the passage. Is the object of the passage 21st century Christians, or is the object of the passage the people that were in Judah in 586 BC and taken to Babylon? Oh, okay, it's those people. And the P is very important because it stands for, is this passage prescriptive or descriptive? Most of the Bible is actually descriptive. It's not prescriptive.
Yep.
For example, okay, David committed adultery with Bathsheba. That's a description. It's not a prescription for us. He's not telling us to commit adultery.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so a lot of those things are cleared up if you go through those four letters, S-T-O-P, and there's a lot to unpack in each of those letters. We do it in the course, How to Interpret Your Bible. But the point here is that if you come across any passage, just stop and say, what's the situation? What type of literature is this? Who's the object of the passage? And is this prescriptive or descriptive? Most of the problems that you'll have will be resolved if you answer those questions.
And it may sound like a major change, and it may be for a lot of people, but this is one of the things, once you've adapted this way of, which is the correct way of interpreting the Bible, once you've done that, it becomes self-conscious. You begin to do it naturally, and much more quickly and much more efficiently. So don't be overwhelmed if you hearing the acronym STOP and you're hearing Dr. Frank Turek explain how to go about it, because once you begin to learn this, you just do it naturally.
Yeah, I think you do. You're kind of, it's like, if Tim, I wrote you a letter, you wouldn't just take one sentence out of context and say, or I wrote you an email.
CNN does that.
Yeah, that's right. You would read the whole thing and figure out, okay, what's the situation here? Why is he writing me?
Yeah, that's right.
Is he what type is he being direct? Is he making a joke? Who's the object of the passage? Is this about me? Is it about somebody else? Is he telling me to do something, or is he just describing what he wants me to know? I mean, you would do that with anything, right?
All right. Hey, Ray, go ahead. Do you have a question for Frank?
Yeah, tell us, Frank. This course you've mentioned, How to Interpret the Bible, I'm assuming it's an online course. It sounds to me like this is the kind of thing any of our listeners could really benefit from. So tell us how they can get involved.
Well, if they go to crossexamine.org and click on online courses, they'll see it there. We're about to start a live version of it where I answer questions online. That particular version is filled up, but that's okay. You can still take the self-paced version at your own pace. But if they go to crossexamine.org and click on online courses, they'll see it there. It's one of about 30 courses that we provide. But how to interpret your Bible just seems to me to be, for us Christians, this ought to be like one of the number one things we learn, right? If we think the Bible's the Word of God, how are we supposed to interpret it properly so we can apply it to our lives properly? And but by the way, if you don't apply it to your life properly, it can actually cause you to doubt God and doubt the faith. Like if you think Jeremiah 29:11 is a promise to you, and you run with that and you go, oh, and then it doesn't happen, you think, well, maybe the Bible's not true,
Right. Yep.
or maybe there is no God. Or a lot of people in the prosperity gospel world, they'll take verses out of context and say, well, if I'm not healthy and wealthy, it's because I don't have enough faith. I just need to have more faith. And then when it continually doesn't happen, they don't get healthy, they don't get wealthy, they think, oh, the Bible's false, or there is no God, when they're just misinterpreting the Bible.
Mm-hmm. All right. You're listening to Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Well, listen, Frank, thanks so much for your time. Very interesting topic, how to interpret your Bible. I think you're right. We want to, well, I know you're right. We want to be able as Christians to interpret the Bible correctly and in context, and so that we don't, get off on tangents or we get our theology messed up and tell other people it's the right way and it turns out to be the wrong way on things. But the essence of the gospel message is pretty clear. It's hard to misinterpret what Jesus came here to do primarily, right?
Well, people try and misinterpret it, but
I don't know how you do. He went to the cross, and
that's right. He said, "I did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give my life as a ransom for many."
Yeah.
But maybe you'll be comforted to know, Tim, that while the number one Bible verse on Bible Gateway search was Jeremiah 29:11, the second was John 3:16.
Oh, good. Good to know.
There you go. There is hope.
Yep. There is hope.
There's context there.
All right. Thank you, Frank. Take care.
All right. Thanks, guys. God bless. See you.
Thank you, too. Dr. Frank Turek there. So he's talking about something for laymen, right?
Right.
Ray?
And look, I was a pastor for 27 years, L.A., Dallas, and Chicago. And if I could make one observation, say from 50 years ago when I was a young kid and coming through seminary and starting out in the ministry versus today in the 21st century, we're seeing a lot of people come to Christ, but they are fearfully untaught in what you might call a Christian worldview, biblical worldview. Fearfully, back in the old days, okay, somebody said it this way, back in the old days, 50, 60, 70 years ago, you had clean sinners who basically came from intact families, and they had some knowledge of who Jesus is and who God is. They knew the story of Samson, they knew the story of David, they knew the story of Moses. Today in the 21st century, it's something closer to, quote, raw pagans who are being saved by the great power of God, and they come in and you show them this Bible, and it is terrifying because they do not know which end is up. They don't know the history of it, the background of it. So I think Frank is 100% right that pastors today have got to do something that, say, when I was starting out, didn't seem to be quite as important. We assumed everybody was going to read the Bible because they knew something about it. I don't think we can assume that anymore. We've got to tell them not just read the Bible, but when you read Isaiah, this is how you read Isaiah. And it's not the same as when you read Song of Solomon, and it's not the same as when you read 2 Thessalonians or Revelation. You got to know something about the background of the Bible to make sense of it. That, I think, is new today versus a generation, 2 generations ago.
Hey, when did Frank say that chapters and verses were put in the Bible?
Oh, it was some hundreds of years after the New Testament was written, because there were no verses. Isaiah wasn't writing verses, but neither was Mark. Neither was John when he did the book of Revelation. Those were added a few hundred years later. But Catholic monk, I don't remember the whole story, but the Catholic monk riding the horse, and he add a verse here and a chapter division here. Those chapter divisions were not They're not ordained by
Okay.
God. Okay.
Okay, they were put in to help people read better, or I
Right.
guess
said
reference.
he said
To
navigate.
navigate and to reference better. I mean, if you're talking to somebody, or if you're studying, and you got a long book of the Bible, and you didn't have chapters and verses, it would be hard to, it'd make it more time consuming. I don't know what the original thinking was. I guess Frank might have known, or we could go back and look at that. But
Well, I think that's it.
Yeah.
That, I mean, you couldn't say, well, okay, over there in Jeremiah is a long book.
Right.
Where in Jeremiah?
Right.
Psalm is 150 Psalms. Where in the book of Psalms are you talking
Right.
about? Or even the Gospel of John. Where in John are you talking about? So they're not ordained by God, but they are there to help us quickly find what we need when we read God's Word.
And there are Bibles that remove those numbers in order for you to read it in that way. They do exist out there. They're not as commonly sold as the ones that have what we know.
Right.
But they do exist.
Right.
Bibliotheca, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it.
Teca, I think.
Bibliotheca. They have one out. It's pretty sharp.
Yeah. By the way, what's the most popular version in the Bible in the U.S., Ray? Do you know?
Well, I think for long years it was the NIV and may still be the NIV. I think when I was coming through in my pastoral times, the NIV became very popular. Then the ESV, the ESV is certainly hugely popular. King James has a following, as it should, because it's written in such beautiful English. Today, I think the NIV, the ESV, and maybe if you're looking for a more colloquial, if that's the right word, a more informal translation, something like the NLT, the New Living Translation. Those three, I think, are very popular.
Mm-hmm. All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Chris, back to you.
Well, yesterday, we may have witnessed the last exchange between America's best frenemies, Peter Doocy of Fox News and White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. We've long heard and played clips of these two going at it at White House press briefings. And yesterday, Peter Doocy was given an opportunity to ask, I think, Karine Jean-Pierre one final question here. I've isolated it down to about 46 seconds. Clip 13.
So, a week from now, it's all over.
Yes.
Between next Monday and 2028.
2028?
Who's the leader of the Democratic Party?
Oh, my goodness. Wow. That is, honestly, for people much smarter than I to make that assessment, that decision. Obviously, voters will decide. That is not something for me to decide. I could say right now, in this moment, in this room, as I'm looking at the clock as it's counting down, because we have to leave shortly, you have the President Joe Biden, who is obviously the president and the leader of the Democratic Party. I do not have I cannot predict the future, so that is not something that I'm going to do from here.
So she did not refer you to someone else, but she did defer him to, quote, people much smarter than I.
Well, that's about the best answer she's given the whole time she's been in office. All right, huh? she's not in office, but you know what I'm saying. She's
in the position she's in.
She's been spokesperson for Biden. First it was Jen Circleback Psaki.
All right.
Huh?
She took a TV gig.
When did she last? About a year?
Yeah, about a year. She was out. She got an offer from MSNBC to host a show and went over there. And then that's when Karine Jean-Pierre. Karine Jean, I want to be clear, Pierre. Every time she says I want to be clear, she only muddies the water.
That's right.
So anyway, so she's out, but he's asking her who the leader of the Democrat Party is.
That's a good question.
They don't have one.
Right.
It's discombobulated right now.
Yeah.
The Democrats.
Ray, if I ask you who's the leader of the Democrat Party today, what would you say?
Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody. Well, that's like asking who's the president right now in this last week.
Right. Nobody.
Ostensibly Joe Biden. We don't really know who's pulling the levers there in the White House.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, no, it's been a dangerous situation, in my opinion, for the last few months when we've had a president that nobody has any confidence in being able to do the job. But that's the reason the Democrats ran him out and said you can't win in November. They told him that in June after that debacle of a debate. And ever since then, I've been going, well, if you're going to say he can't run again, why are you saying America's stuck with him for 7 months, talking about Biden and not being able to function to be able to do the job? That's a very high-risk situation for our country to be in. You don't have somebody at the helm. But I don't know why they didn't. The Democrats didn't make a move there, except maybe they thought, well, Harris would be worse, and the Vice President Harris would be worse. I don't know. But we've been in a precarious and dangerous spot because we've had nobody flying the plane, really. The person flying the plane is somebody probably we don't even know their name, at the White House or behind the scenes. Some of them we know their names, but whoever's telling Joe Biden what to sign and where to walk to and what to say, that's the person that's de facto president of the United States right now. So, but we will, we've got a few days left here before, in fact, next Monday.
Oh, yeah.
Next Monday's Inauguration Day, and so the new sheriff.
I'm going to take the day off.
The new sheriff.
Nothing going on.
Right, nothing going on. All right, Wesley, we wanted to talk about a ministry that we very much support in the pro-life cause. American Family Association, American Family Radio, one of our core issues is being pro-life, right?
That's right.
Go
100%.
ahead.
Yeah, so this week, January the 13th through January the 22nd, so this entire week, we're taking time out of each of our radio programs, and you'll see a couple social media posts and a few emails. We're taking this week to let you know that Preborn, that we're partnering, as we do annually, with Preborn, and we're asking you to donate. Your gift of $28 will help provide one woman seeking abortion a free ultrasound. So what Preborn does, and many of our listening audience are familiar, but what they do is they set up machines, ultrasound machines at pregnancy clinics, Christian pregnancy clinics, and they offer free ultrasounds. And the number that we share often, and it's just a fact that when a mom hears the sound beat, a heartbeat, the sound of the heartbeat, then they are 80 to 85% more likely to change their mind on what they were going in for, which is to consider an abortion. And so we feel like this is the best area that we can attack this issue and provide hope. And so we've partnered with Preborn as we have. So if you go to afr.net, there you can donate and help us save as many babies as possible through this effort. And this is outside of legislation. This is not involved politics. It doesn't involve government in any way. This is our effort.
This is just Christian ministry.
This is Christian ministry. We've been partnering with Preborn for many years.
Preborn, just for those who don't know, who are new, we say the word Preborn. That's the name of the organization.
That's right.
That's the name of the organization. They're the ones that we support, and we encourage you to support.
Do a distinct effort right here. Whereas we're a larger ministry, do multiple different things. They wake up every day to try to provide as many free ultrasounds. That's what you're doing. When you donate, you're providing a free ultrasound.
Free ultrasound, because ultrasounds cost money, so they take these buses around the country, right?
That's right. Yeah.
They take these, and women they advertise, and young ladies, women come in, they're pregnant, and if they get a ultrasound, and they see the baby's heartbeat, they're going to be highly likely to keep the baby.
80%. In addition to that, they also, over the years, have developed a ministry to share the gospel as well in the process as well.
So what's the website? So we encourage people to buy one or two.
Free ultrasounds. $28 is one ultrasound, and $140 is 5 free ultrasounds. And they can go to afr.net, or they can call 877-616-2396.
What's the phone number again?
877-616-2396, or go to afr.net.
So just go to our website, afr.net, and read all about it.
Right there.
We'll be back momentarily. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Peter Rosenberger, author of the book A Minute for Caregivers, When Every Day Feels Like Monday.
I've been a caregiver for nearly 40 years, and I know how important it is to encourage a family caregiver. I also understand that caregivers don't have a lot of time, and each chapter of my book can be read in a minute. It's encouragement, support, And each chapter will point you to safety. Oh, by the way, they're all written in Fluent Caregiver.
A Minute for Caregivers is available at resources.afa.net.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. President Donald Trump's nominee for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth facing questions from senators on Capitol Hill today for his confirmation hearing. He has touted his service in the Army National Guard as an asset for the job, but has faced allegations of sexual assault. Hegseth was asked about the allegations and claims it was a coordinated smear campaign against him.
All they were out to do, Mr. Chairman, was to destroy me. And why do they want to destroy me? Because I'm a change agent and a threat to them, because Donald Trump was willing to choose me, to empower me, to bring the Defense Department back to what it really should be, which is warfighting. I want to thank President Trump for his faith in me and his selfless leadership for our republic. The troops have no better commander-in-chief than Donald Trump.
A Republican congressman's idea to deny wildfire aid to California unless there's a federal debt ceiling increase is now drawing the scorn of Democrats.
California Republican Congressman Jay Obernolte confirms to Fox News Radio House Republicans discussed with President-elect Trump during meetings in Mar-a-Lago the idea of tying California wildfire aid to an agreement to raise the debt ceiling.
Certainly, we're going to need some kind of legislative vehicle to be able to enact the kind of relief that Californians need.
The idea facing scorn from Democrats like California's Sidney Kamlager-Dove.
We didn't do it in Florida. We didn't do it in North Carolina. We haven't done it in Louisiana with Katrina. Why would we start that now?
Obernolte says an assessment still needs to be done in the wake of the wildfires in Los Angeles before Congress will need to take action. On Capitol Hill, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
A conservative political commentator is encouraged that there is growing pushback against the global warming nonsense that permeates the politics in places like California. More from Chad Groening.
Robert Knight is a columnist for the Washington Times. His latest column is entitled CO2 Cabal is on the Move, but finally getting pushback. In it, he cites several examples of carbon dioxide hysteria, including California,
where climate hysteria has bound the hands of public officials who should have been managing natural resources, knowing that Santa Ana winds have been with us for eons, and you manage the environment. California did none of that. They just kept concentrating on global warming and pushing solar power and wind power and doing electric car mandates and just giving in to the climate hysteria. And now I think they're paying a terrible price for it.
And Knight thinks this current crisis will put an end to Gavin Newsom's presidential aspirations.
Because this is clearly a disaster that has man-made origins. And he's the governor of California. He presided over these extreme climate policies that allowed this to get so far out of hand. And now he's just blaming global warming, and that's absurd. I think his days of being considered presidential timber are over.
And the columnist doesn't think Newsom is the only official on the hot seat right now.
The mayor of L.A. clearly has mismanaged things. So has the fire department under the diverse leadership of its lesbian fire chief. And they seem more interested in diversity, equity, and inclusion policies than firefighting. This is the kind of idiot thinking that has permeated California politics, and it's why the state is in such sad shape today.
I'm Chad Groening.
President Biden announces more student loan forgiveness as he heads into the last days of his time in the White House. Edward Lawrence tells us the latest details from the White House.
The total amount of forgiveness is $184 billion, roughly, for more than 5 million borrowers. Now, the forgiveness announced came under 3 programs not sued by the states because the rules of those programs were not changed. Still, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says that between now and January 23rd, she could announce the government implementing extraordinary measures to stretch taxpayer money so the government does not reach the debt ceiling before March 14th. Republicans now vowing to cut that wasteful spending.
U.S. wholesale inflation rose last month on higher energy prices. The Labor Department reports today that its Producer Price Index, which tracks inflation before it hits consumers, rose 0.2% last month from November. More news online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
This weekend on The Stand Radio, we'll hear about the Brooks family and their journey of surrender to the Lord that opened the door to adoption.
We were very peaceful that
having biological children was not what the Lord intended.
And when you rest in God's will and you surrender to that, that waiting period becomes growing closer to Him.
The Stand Radio, Saturdays at 4 and Sundays at 8 p.m. Central on AFR.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildmon, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the radio program Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network on this Tuesday, January the 14th. Thanks for listening to AFR Live Radio here. Tim, Wesley, and Ray. And joining us in studio now is Steve Paisley Jordahl, donning the Paisley shirt.
Yep, I'm repping the Paisley today.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I've asked this question before. Is that a retro, or do people wear Paisley today commonly?
Not commonly.
Okay.
No. It started with ties for me. Paisley ties are, I think, a little more common than shirts. But
where do you buy those? You get those online or?
Sometimes online. I like shopping at Men's Warehouse.
Yeah. Oh, they haven't changed that name of that company yet?
No, it's that person's warehouse. It's
okay.
Still Men's Warehouse.
Choose your pronoun warehouse?
That's right.
Huh?
It's he, him.
Oh, man. All right, what's you got some breaking news?
It looks like it. Yeah, here we have this posted at our website on American Family News, AFN.net. According to officials, Hamas has accepted a draft agreement for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and the release of dozens of hostages. That, according to two officials involved with talks Tuesday. Mediator Qatar and Israel and the Palestinian militant group were at the closest point yet to sealing a deal that would bring them a step closer to ending the war. AP has a copy of the proposed agreement. It looks like, and I'm just reading also on Haaretz, which is one of the newspapers in Israel, that Netanyahu has accepted a deal. So it looks pretty close.
Yeah, well, Hamas is in really no position to negotiate any longer.
No.
They've been pretty well destroyed.
They're being negotiated too.
Yeah.
This is what you're going to do.
But this is good news.
Yes.
This is good news because it means, if it holds, it means, there will be no more firing back and forth between Israel and Hamas. Israel's pretty well dominated Hamas in the last few months and shut them down in Gaza, and Hezbollah is they're out of business. They're in Lebanon.
Paging Hezbollah.
I know,
sorry.
paging. So Ray, did you hear? Do you take this as good news?
Hey, anything that would bring the war to an end is good news. And I kept hearing the words of Ronald Reagan, as he used to say about the Soviets: trust but verify.
Right.
Trust but verify. Do I think Israel should trust Hamas? No. They've been at war with
And Israel knows that. Yeah.
That's right. Well, this wouldn't have happened if somebody else besides Netanyahu had been prime minister. It just would not have come out this way. But this is all to Israel's credit. When half the world or more said stop, 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 they kept going. They kept fighting, and I think this proposed treaty means they have really won the war, won the conflict.
Well, also the fact that we're going to have a new president.
Yes.
Here in the United States, Trump is very supportive of Israel, much more so than Biden. So that's a change. The Hamas and whoever they may be friends with in the Middle East see that President Trump's about to take office, and he's on the side of Israel. So he's not going to be, trying to.
They know which way the wind is blowing.
Right. So
make peace now while you can.
Plus, there's nothing more, in my view. There's nothing more Hamas can do Steve. I mean, what can they do?
Well, no. Again, they're being dictated to. So the history there, as you all know, is that every time Israel has offered Hamas some concessions before the October 7th attack and the decimation of Hamas, Israel has offered them everything they wanted more, and they keep rejecting it. They kept rejecting it. No, we're not going to do it. Yasser Arafat did this. They didn't want a peace deal. Well, now they really don't have a choice because their head has been cut off. The head of the organization has been cut off, and they're.
Yeah, this is good news, if not great news, for the people of Israel and for their lives to get back to normal and for some peace and stability. I tell you what, I don't know. I know this is retrospect, Ray, but I don't know. Trying to think like Hamas on October, what day was that? October the what?
7th.
The 7th, 2023, right?
Right.
It's kind of like what they did that day. Of course, the savagery and the butchery was unspeakable, okay? And they killed 1,100 or 1,200 people that day, which is still unbelievable to me, given the Israeli defenses and how Israel should have been prepared for this along the Gaza Strip border. But anyway, they killed all these people. That was if you want to look at, I guess what I'm saying, Hamas sort of rolled the dice that day that would be a game changer for them to seize back control of certain lands, or what, I don't know what exactly they were hoping to accomplish that day, but whatever it was, completely and totally and utterly backfired on them, because it only made Israel then go into Gaza, and they're still there, and they're going to take care of business once and for all. It's going to be the end. It won't be the end of the Hamas ideology, okay? But at least for the foreseeable future, it will be the end of Hamas's threat to Israel.
Yes. And
I don't know if so that's what I mean by, Steve, they rolled the dice, Hamas did, and they lost.
Well, so it's hard to get into the head of a terrorist.
I know.
But part of what they wanted to accomplish, they accomplished at the beginning of this thing, which was to get a world opinion on the side of the terrorists. So you saw all in this country, the campus protest, Free Palestine.
Yeah, they weren't protesting against Hamas. They were protesting against Israel, right?
Right. Well, that was Hamas's plan, and they wanted the United Nations, which has consistently been anti-Semitic. They wanted more stuff from the United Nations. They got all of that. What they probably didn't want or didn't plan on was Israel coming and systematically, taking them apart. They probably thought, since we're hiding behind our civilians and behind babies in hospitals, they wouldn't dare. Well, they dared.
Yeah, and as now we look back, I think it was the end of Hamas as we know it.
Yep.
So, all right, you're listening to Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Next story, Steve.
All right. We've got a new fire that broke out today or late last
Seriously?
night. Yeah, it's called the Auto Fire, and it's 0% contained. It's in Ventura County, which is north of where all these other fires are.
In California.
It's in California. Ventura County is right before you get to, so it's north or, northwest of the current fires that we're talking about.
So
there's a new fire there, you're saying?
A new fire in Ventura County called the Auto Fire.
So is it close enough to the other fires that it's possible that it's provoked from the other fires taking place, and or is it so far away that one or two things happen? Either it happened naturally, or someone potentially could have started it.
Well, again,
the distance.
The distance I don't believe is close enough so that like wind could have.
That's what I'm saying.
Brought embers over there.
So then you start getting real curious. I mean, how are all these fires just popping up?
And we don't know. And here's the problem: is that it's going to take a while to definitively understand. They got to put them out before they can go in and do any kind of forensics on how the fire started and all that kind of stuff. So. Just so you know, Wesley, I'll show you this. This is a map I've just pulled up here. The other fires that we've been talking about have been just
I'm tracking with
just west of Los Angeles. you have to go another maybe 40 miles to get to this auto fire. So
I see now. Yeah, that is a long way.
Unlikely that it was started.
Okay, Steve, let me ask you this. You showed me a video yesterday, showed us a video yesterday, which some people have seen.
I gave it to Brent to post on our website just a little bit ago. So
we
it should
did.
be up there.
Okay, good. So on our Today's Issues Facebook page, we have posted the video we're about to discuss.
Yep.
So you showed me a video with satellite imagery. So describe that. How did you find that, and where?
It came up on my.
It's viral, maybe by now.
I had to look for it pretty hard here this morning to find it again, so I don't think it's quite gone viral yet. There are some time. This is satellite imagery, and it's time lapse. The ones that are going viral today are time lapse of the individual fires, showing them spreading. But this one showed a global picture, a pulled back picture of the LA area, and the three fires that started this whole thing. One was I'd have to get the names of them, but
they have names for the fires,
right? But three of them ignited almost simultaneously, within a good distance apart from each other.
That's what I saw, and that's the reason in our group text 3 or 4 days ago I said, when you mentioned that at the time we didn't have that wasn't part of the discussion. You made the point that when the winds are that fast, then it carries and can jump, and that's true too. But what I saw was the distance between the two. It looks to me, my observation is impossible that winds could have carried a fire that far. When they're going off simultaneously.
Ray, if you see a satellite image of three fires, many, many miles apart, by many, I mean at least 10, 20, 30 miles apart, and they're starting at the same time, immediately you think, well, this is on purpose.
It is coincidental.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the video right now for the first time. And by the way, friends, do go to the Today's Issues Facebook page, because it is, they're almost like a triangle. There's one there on the left and one on the right and then one down below. And they come up together, apparently simultaneously. Hard to see how that could have happened by the winds blowing in those three places right then at that very moment.
Yeah, no, if in fact that's accurate, and we believe that it is, that satellite imagery, or we wouldn't have put it up there, and that would be either it's these fires started at the same time coincidentally, but they did have the same conditions, physical conditions. That is, a very dry, hasn't rained in 6 months, and you got high winds, which makes it, and they've had wildfires in the past. So, I mean, that would, so they could have started, coincidentally at the same time, or it was like terrorism, arson, where somebody, they planned it this way to start the fires at the same time, knowing the conditions would be ripe for destruction and spread. We don't know.
We don't. Let me give you the pros and cons of all that. Yeah. So everything you said is true. With the time lapse, it's a little hard. It looks like they're starting exactly at the same time, but it's time lapse. So it could be that we can't tell the difference between a half an hour or an hour in the time lapse. It goes by so fast. It looks identical, but it may have been. I'm reading that one of the fires is started. There was a fire on New Year's Eve that was started by fireworks, and they got it out and they worked on it and got it out. They think maybe one of these is a rekindling of that, perhaps. But I have video of arsonists, copycat arsonists that they've caught. One guy with a blowtorch, another guy setting a big tree on fire in the LA area, and they're looking for these guys. So there have been some fires, and I don't know if they're not the major ones. They've been put out, I think, but I have seen some fires that have been started by coincidence. Now,
what do you call somebody who there's a psychological definition for somebody who likes to watch things burn?
Pyromaniac.
Okay, pyromaniac. I got you. Those people do exist.
Oh yeah,
and they're out there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So now to the more conspiracy theory part of this. There's a guy in L.A. Put a video out of him having a conversation with himself. It's kind of one of those devil's advocate, and that he answers and everything. And so I'll just put this out because everything that he says is true, but and if you put them all together, it sounds kind of conspiratorial. But have a listen to Cut 14.
Okay, so California's on fire, but we have like the best fire department in the world, right? We should be able to contain this, right?
I mean, we did, but the mayor cut the fire department's budget last year, so not enough personnel for this one.
What? Well, I mean, we don't need everybody. We just need a certain amount to spray the area with water.
I love that you say it. It's so funny because the state actually depleted its water reserves a couple months ago, so the firefighters literally don't have enough water to fight the fires with.
Wait, that doesn't make any sense. We're in a drought, and so we depleted our water reserves? Well, at least the people that have fire insurance will be getting some money, right?
Ooh, this is awkward. Okay, don't get mad at me, but insurance companies like State Farm has not been allowing renewal of fire insurance policies since 2 months ago, and it's been canceling a lot of contracts.
So let me get this straight. 2 months before the fire, the state depleted its water reserves. Insurance companies have been canceling its fire insurance policy. It's like it's Maui all over again, but it's not like the state needs to free up a whole bunch of land to open up a new smart city infrastructure, right? Because we haven't announced anything like that, did we?
The LA district might have announced plans to set up a smart city by 2028.
A smart what?
Smart city.
Oh.
So
into the future city.
Yeah, one of those where it's all self-contained. You don't need to go more than 8 miles in any direction to live your life, and they might not let you go outside that.
Let me ask you guys something about the insurance, because I don't know.
Tell you what, if mine goes up one more time,
right? Well,
car insurance.
I know the car insurance. Well, let me just ask you this. Because I don't know the right or wrong answer on this. I have a feeling, but okay. So what you have what this fellow just described as State Farm doing, I don't know if it was statewide or if it was just regionally there in in Los Angeles.
This, according to the LA Times, before fires burned more than 100,000 structures in Los Angeles County, insurers chose not to renew thousands of home insurance policies in Pacific Palisades, Altadena, and other fire-prone areas. The rising costs and cancellations left many fire victims without adequate means to cover the losses.
Okay. So Ray, let me ask you this.
Right.
They have a situation where it's not as simple as Joe has a house and he dropped his insurance because it cost too much and he took the risk, and I'm sorry this happened, but he rolled the dice and he's lost, so to speak, and that's unfortunate. This is a situation, just to explain to people what happened here, where people had fire insurance, homeowners insurance, in these areas that Steve just named, but the companies decided not to renew. Is it an annual renewal? Is that what most of them do? I guess they do. For your homeowners insurance. Okay.
Right.
So the companies, State Farm and others, would have done an analysis and said, you know what, this is too high a risk for us to maintain. Therefore, we're not going to insure your house anymore. So that happened 2 months ago with State Farm. That's what you're saying, Mr. Steve. So what it sounds like to me is you have a lot of people, because of other companies probably have done that in the last year, especially since we've had fires for 3 or 4 years now, right, in those areas. So, yeah, albeit a lot smaller, but they cancel the insurance, and so the people didn't have access to it. They hadn't found another company to insure them, so they had been paying their premiums.
Right.
And then the company cut them off.
Right.
Could it be that State Farm considered the environment that the
yes, but is that right? Is that moral? Right. That's my question. Is it right and moral? Is it okay for a corporation?
I think.
Hold on. Let Ray answer, and then you can. To insure somebody for 20 years and then cut them off, and then say we're not paying squat. You don't have a right to a claim.
I'm sure the insurance companies are saying that the policies that were followed in Los Angeles and from Sacramento created conditions in which something like this was bound to happen, and there was no way that they could not cover the cost. They simply couldn't do it. And so they made a business decision I think they felt they were backed into a corner and they had no other choice but to say, we can't cover you. So
when the tornado hit Amory, Mississippi 2 years ago in January, or a year and a half ago, whenever it was, we had insurance. My home was damaged. We had insurance. The insurance company paid and then canceled our contract, figuring you're now proven to be in Tornado Alley and we can't afford to insure you. Now, I did get other insurance. There was another company that was willing to insure me, but I've heard this before. You had to replace a new roof because of hail. Well, they'll pay for it, but they're not going to do it twice. And it's just a math problem for these insurance
I would
companies.
differentiate, not to disagree with you, Steve. I would differentiate between being hit by a tornado, which is like one in a 10,000. I don't know what it is, and being somewhere where wildfires happen all day. I mean, every year.
I agree, but if they're going to cancel it based on something that happens once in a million, certainly if they think it's going to happen once in a dozen, they're going to cancel that too.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, the chances of getting hit by a tornado are much less in, say, Delaware or Maryland than in Tornado Alley, North Texas, Oklahoma, Western Kansas.
You were going to say, Wesley?
I was going to say, and I hadn't thought through this all the way to the end, but my first reaction would be it's the insurance prerogative to drop customers. However, if they would have dropped them as the fires are coming through, then that's a problem. But they've had 2 months to find insurance. And now the other layer to this, you're saying that it's possible that there's not another insurance company. Well, then that's a problem too.
Right, and the cost of it. All right, let me just say this, and this may be the bottom line answer, okay? And so this sounds like I'm not compassionate at all towards the people, and I am sympathetic, and people ought to help them. But if you choose to live in an area that has a history of a certain weather pattern that is dangerous, i.e., wildfires, and you know it never rains in Southern California, and you know the Santa Ana winds are going to come every year like they have since the Lord created the earth. You're surrounded by woodhouse after woodhouse after woodhouse. You know what? You're living in a tinderbox, willfully and intentionally. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be allowed to. I'm just saying you take that risk, much like somebody does when they buy a condo on the Gulf Coast.
Right.
Hurricanes are going to happen.
Can I get to the woke fire chief before we end?
Yep, go for it.
I just want to play this real quick. This is the assistant fire chief who's in charge of DEI at the LA Fire Department. Cut 7.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's awful.
So that was the DEI, Bert, LA DEI officer saying, well, we want to make sure that the
She's
fire
a recruiter
looks
too.
like you.
Yeah.
Right.
She's trying to recruit people.
And by the way, if I have to carry you out of the fire, you're in the wrong place to begin with. It's not my fault. Just ridiculous.
Wow.
I can't believe they had that as an answer on a videotape.
And they aired it. I mean, it's a
a promo.
Promo. Let's go look at our website and watch our DEI.
Yeah.
Say if you're where a woman can't pull you out of a fire, it's your fault. You shouldn't have been there.
That's right.
I'm shocked. I really am. I'm stunned that they let that on the video. That was the DEI officer?
That was the chief DEI officer for the LA Fire Department.
All right, Tim, I want to thank Wesley. I want to thank Steve. I want to thank Brent Creeley, our producer, Ray Pritchard. I want to thank Ray. I want to thank Frank Turek and Chris Woodward. And we hope you have a great day, everybody.